next to you, if he wasn't dead already. For 47 days, Louis Zamperini survived with two of his other crew members after a terrible crash in the Pacific Ocean during World War II, only to be rescued by the worst enemy imaginable at the time, the Japanese Navy. And that started off as 2 years as a POW. Louis Zamperini is not just another man. He's a fearless, courageous warrior who stood in the battlefield, looked death straight in the eye and said, "Bring it on," who cried out to God, who suffered immeasurable pain, who came back from the war with PTSD, alcoholism, abuse, and gave his life up to Christ, and served as an amazing mentor and public speaker. This is Louis Zamperini. This is my personal hero. This is the man I had the pleasure shaking hands with. To tell you a little bit more, before all of this happened, he was an Olympic runner, an athlete, shook hands with Hitler himself, the boy with the fastest smile in the 1936 Olympic Games. He was also the bombardier of a B-24 named Superman during World War II that got shot up more times than most of the planes in the squadron. But now, even after all this, he was in the hands of the Japanese, or so he thought. The three things I want you to take away from my dear friend Louis Zamperini is that he is courageous, he is full of grace, and he has a heart for God. He is a hero and an inspiration to many people today. He was able to survive these 47 days on a raft, which is the record for any amount of days survived on the Pacific Ocean without food, without water. 2 years in a POW prison camp, beaten and tortured almost every single day, known for his Olympic running. He would be mocked, spat upon, beaten, bruised, near death, starvation, you name it, he suffered it all. And afterwards, he struggled with alcoholism when he got back to the States. He struggled with his own physical abuse, his own nightmares, his PTSD, beating his wife, he suffered it all. And yet, it's by God's grace and by God's grace that he is here today. And why he is such an inspiration. One is because he is courageous, because he was able to survive all this and still know that God was with him. He was also full of grace. Eventually, after he survived the war and came back, found God at a Billy Graham concert, he went back to the Japanese POW prison camps, where the people who held him captive were actually being held for crimes against humanity. And he forgave every single one of them. And some even became Christians. He even forgave the most notorious captor of them all, named the Bird, who would beat him and abuse him daily. He also has a heart for God. His ministry eventually led him to create an at-risk boys camp called Victory Boys Camp up in the Rocky Mountains, where he would teach inner-city youths that were at risk to be a man. Climb rocks, fix motorcycles, you name it, hunt, fish. Understand, again, where they came from and where God came from. Next slide, please. I want to leave you with this quote by Louis. It's one of his most famous quotes. One he actually said to me while I sat down and had lunch with him. He says, "To preserve is important to everybody. Do not give up. Do not give in. There's always an answer to everything." He was a survivor, and he went home to be with our Father at the age of 97, 2 years ago. For the whole story, one of the reasons I even found about Louis and was able to meet him was this book called Unbroken, which was turned into a motion picture recently. To really fully understand what this man went through and why he's such an inspiration to me and why he has changed lives across the world, I would recommend reading it. But I hope this is just a glimpse, an understanding of a man who went through terrible, terrible things and yet still gave his heart up for God and went on to be one of the greatest success stories of our time.